instead of doing like some introductory monologue thing, I'm going to stress something very important here. Do not feel called out or that I am picking on you because this video exists. I know a lot of people, and just by definition, a lot of people with much smaller followings than me have talked about this already, and I don't want to feel like I'm punching down on other people, because I'm obviously going to be taking a very strict stance here that disagrees with what a lot of people will be saying. I saw this being discussed by Japanese Twitter users before my previous video even released, and more or less decided on every talking point I'd make here then and there. So if the primary language you use to discuss the Xenoblade series on the internet is English, which I'm going to assume is most of the people watching this video because of the language I'm speaking right now, don't worry, this doesn't really have anything to do with you. That being said, as this is talking about retcons and Xenoblade X being tied into the main series, I will need to spoil Xenoblade 1, Xenoblade 2, and the original X. For those of you out of the loop, because of certain elements in Xenoblade 3's future Redeemed DLC, many fans of the series believe that a retcon has taken place, and the Earth destroyed at the beginning of Xenoblade X is the same Earth Klaus's experiment took place on, with a lot of people believing that some of the new story elements in Xenoblade X Definitive Edition are going to make that connection clearer and explicitly concrete. While I vehemently disagree, I personally think it's much simpler than that. In Xenoblade 2, Klaus mentions that there are many universes. X can just be another one of those universes. The way the Earths are destroyed does not line up whatsoever, and can't unless you do mass memory manipulation on everyone from X or remove Elma, and we already know one of those hasn't happened. Anyway, people can believe that. We will find out the truth in March, or more likely April, once people are able to actually beat the game and get to the new content, but that's not the point of this video. What people are saying right now, and can be debunked right now, is the idea that certain editing choices in the reveal trailer for X Definitive Edition already confirm that this retcon is being made. Basically, in order to reconcile the two different types of Earths being destroyed into one incident, they would need to excise or explain away via memory manipulation or something the part of Xenoblade X's introductory cutscene where we directly see the planet explode. As we know, it does have to be intact for Xenoblade 2 to exist. Ignoring the potential issues between the factions that are fighting around Earth being different in both continuities, the final explosion that engulfs Earth does seem to originate from above the surface of the planet, which weirdly contradicts with what we're told in supplemental material, where it's antimatter explosions on the surface that finally did it in. So you could argue that explosion is actually Klaus's experiment, although there are a few issues with that. Now, obviously, Xenoblade 2 expanded on the Klaus experiment cutscene from the first game, and when they went back and remastered Xenoblade 1, they did not change the scene whatsoever to include new elements like the orbital ring, the conduit, or the beanstalk, and we don't know when in Xenoblade 2's development timeline those elements were invented, so if the intention back from the original X was always to make these elements connected, they probably would not have been in the original cutscene anyway, and based on precedent, there's very good reason to believe that no matter what they do to the story, any existing cutscenes will be kept as close to the original release as possible, with any new information or connections being reserved for the brand new content. That's of course just an educated guess, so let's debunk the thing that people have really zeroed in on, and that is the fact that in the reveal trailer for X Definitive Edition, almost every screen transition is a simple jump cut, including cuts that already existed in cutscenes from the original game, except for the one that's transitioning from the opening cutscene showing the battle over Earth to Lyn and Tatsu in Noctilum. In this case, it does a fade through white or flash style transition, and then the next voiceover line that plays is Lyn talking about how Earth vanished in a flash of light, which is not from the original version of the opening cutscene, and is completely consistent with Klaus's experiment, while somewhat contradicting the explosion we see in part of that cutscene that's not shown in this trailer, so it could theoretically be removed. As an aside, this angle of Lyn and Tatsu in Noctilum does not appear to be present in the original game, so either they're spicing up the cinematography in some of the more bland cutscenes from the base game, or this is from some of the brand new story elements. That aside, this means absolutely nothing, and the first thing is that this is not the only unique transition in the trailer. Later on, the group of skells flying across Primordia at sunset transitions to a panning shot of a park in NLA's residential district, and that uses a crossfade. So it seems like, unlike me, the good editors who made this trailer are just mixing up the screen transitions in order to keep the brain occupied and focused on the trailer by giving them something it hasn't seen before. On top of that, there are stylistic reasons to use the flash through white as well. The first is to maintain a sense of progression throughout the trailer. The first minute and 20 seconds or so are all cutscene footage, but then when it cuts to gameplay, again this is all using jump cuts for the time being, it is Primordia in the middle of the day. Then Noctilum in the middle of the night, but it's still fairly well lit up because the area is bioluminescent. Then the archipelago north of Primordia, going back to daytime, but there are a lot of darker colored rocks in the background, so it's still progressing a little bit darker, and also because the camera's panned down a little bit lower and you can mostly see the sand on the ground. Then continuing the sand theme, we've got Oblivia, this time at twilight, so the sky is darker, the water is darker, the rocks in Oblivia as a whole are a bit darker, and the sand plays differently in the light. Then we go to Sylvalum with also grayish blue rocks in the background, and while there are a lot of brighter spots, it is overcast, so the sky is darker than it's been yet, and a lot of the colors are cooler as opposed to the warmer colors of Oblivia. Then we keep the overcast thing going back to Primordia where it is a little bit lighter, but the main focus of this scene is the enemy moving around, which is primarily dark colored, and there's an orange plant on the right side of the screen. Then we cut to night in Noctilum again, but it's much darker because the background is only rocks and we can't really see any of the bioluminescent plants. And the enemy is a big dark colored Senicula, but it does have some lit up areas on its body that are a similar orange to the plant. And then after that, we cut to the darkest scene we've seen yet, which is space, a mostly shadowed Earth, and the dark moon. So throughout this entire sequence, we've progressively been getting darker and cooler colored, until we get to these space scenes where it's almost entirely a blue-black space, a blue Earth, and a blue-gray moon. The second and third shots of this scene are a lot brighter because we're closer down to Earth, so the atmosphere appears more like the sky blue we see when looking at it from the bottom, but then we flash through the white. And again, there are several reasons for this. The first is to match the explosions, because the explosions are also flashes of white light. And the second is because the color palette completely changes when we go from this battle over Earth to the Lyn shot. There's not really anything tying those two shots together like there were in the other ones, even when they transition from something like an Indigen roaring to the blackness of space. Because now the main things in the shot are Lyn, whose primary color on her outfit is white, which is very bright, Tatsu, who's a lighter green but also has yellow and orange brown, and Lyn is also looking into the light. So we're flashing to mimic the explosions, and then we also see Lyn look at the sunlight, which also can flash in a white light sometimes. And there's also nothing really drawing your eye between the scenes, so in order to keep it from being a really jarring cut, they use a transition that, while it brings you through a much more intense color, being pure white, eases you into that by gradually getting lighter and then darker again as it goes into the new scene. There are editing and psychological reasons to do this. And also, Lyn's line is still from the original game, by the way. The biggest thing people were talking about is that it does this transition, and then Lyn talks about the Earth vanishing in a flash of light, which is not what she says in the opening cutscene showing the battle on Earth getting destroyed, where she says that its surface was reduced to rubble in a blink of an eye. Well, not only are these things not mutually exclusive, and we do literally see Earth explode in a flash of light in the original game's cutscene, but also, the line Lyn is saying is taken from a different cutscene. She says both of them because they are not mutually exclusive. Barring the one brand new line at the very end of the trailer, not only is every line in it from the original game, but it's also consecutive lines all from the same cutscene. The very cutscene that starts the trailer, when you first get to NLA. Elma's lines are spoken directly to the player character, while Lyn's are non-diegetic narration, as she also narrates the opening cutscene and the ending cutscene. The thing about that is, she gives somewhat contradictory views of what happened to Earth in all three of those. In the opening cutscene, she says Earth's surface was reduced to rubble in the blink of an eye. This is over footage that is in the new trailer of bombs hitting the surface of Earth. Then we later see it explode from an origin point outside the planet. In this NLA scene, she says that it vanished in a flash of light, which does not contradict the other thing, because we saw what the explosion looked like, but it could also be something more broad like the Klaus experiment happening. But then in the ending cutscene, narrator Lynn seems to imply that Earth might not have permanently been lost whatsoever, so I don't know what that means. Theoretically, they could just go into another universe and find a different Earth, because Earth seems to exist in multiple universes, and we already know that the precursors to the Samar Federation entered the Xenoblade X universe from a different one, so if they are able to recover that technology, then yeah, they can just find another Earth. That can be how they connect to the other Xenoblade games, but this trailer and this cutscene are not being retconned. The only difference in the shots from the opening cutscene that I can notice in the trailer are that the color grading is different and better matches the color grading in the rest of the game that we see in non-pre-rendered cutscenes and gameplay shots. Technically, we don't see the ghosts in any of the shots that they showed us here, and there's a very good chance that some of the new story content will explain stuff about the ghosts, but we can't glean anything from what they don't show in a teaser reveal trailer. We can't really talk about any of this conclusively until they show us more, so stop making this kind of wide speculation because it's probably going to be wrong for multiple reasons anyway. I'm just going to leave you with this. If, barring the new camera angle and the raw voice files without the background music that I don't have access to, I can completely recreate how this trailer looks using footage I already have from the original Wii U version of X, this stuff in the trailer probably doesn't mean anything. Until next time though, this is Luxon, signing off.
And so it was that another survivor came to join our band of refugees. Together, we resolved to forge a new way of life here on Mira. Come what may. New LA was our beautiful lie to ourselves. Truth is, we were adrift, heading into the unknown. Our native home was gone, swallowed in a shroud of light. And our future was uncertain. We had no idea what fate lay in store for us. Only that we had to keep living in order to see it.